Hi, my name is Cecil Castellucci. Welcome to Tea with Cecil. Tonight's guest, I'm very excited to introduce you to my friend, Jose Pimienta. Joe Pie, that they go by, almost full name is Jose Pimienta. How do you say it?
Pimienta. Yeah, it's
Pimienta.
the EA part is kind of tricky.
They reside in Glendale, California, where they draw comics, storyboards, and sketches for visual development. They have worked with Random House Graphic, Iron Circus, Dark Horse Comics, woo woo, that's what me and him did, Soupy Leaves Home, Disney Digital Network, and more. During their upbringing in the city of Cali, Mexico, Joe was heavily influenced by animation, music, and short stories. After high school, they ventured towards the state of Georgia, and they studied at SCAD, the Savannah College of Art and Design. Great school. Joe does some podcast thing with Kel McDonald. Yes,
yeah.
And Joe is my friend. Hi, Joe.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we're friends, and once again, now that we're recording, I'm so glad that you invited me to be here. So thanks so much. Like I'm looking forward to this. It's a lot of fun.
You are welcome. I fucking love you. Thank you so much for coming and joining your guest number 2. So my first question, of course, is what kind of tea are you drinking, and what's your mug, or what are you drinking?
So I'm drinking hot chocolate tonight.
Nice.
And I definitely took advantage of the situation to display on camera this new mug that I just got. This is a gift from a friend who is an LA native currently living in New York, and this is a gift that got sent in the mail, and I love it because it's got like a little paper
like origami. Yeah, I love it.
So yeah, that's.
Well, I've got my Tintin mug. I was drinking tea earlier, but it's nighttime now, so I've moved on to a little Sauvignon Blanc.
Fair. I was considering pouring some whiskey, but I figured that it's Thursday. I'll say that for tomorrow.
Yeah, it's not warm, but it is going to warm my heart. And obviously, Tintin is one of the reasons I guess I love comics. So is hot chocolate one of your favorite? I love hot chocolate. I love hot chocolate. I almost went for that tonight, but then went with one. Is hot chocolate one of your favorite go-to cozy comfort drinks?
Not really. I mean, out of my, I guess that's the thing. Like, I don't particularly have comfy's go-tos, to be honest. Usually I'm a very casual moment to moment type of, so I usually just drink water in the evenings or something, or throughout the day. But and in the mornings I drink coffee.
So healthy.
Yes, but I guess that's just kind of figured. Like, I do like hot chocolate a lot. I rarely get it, and I figured this is a special occasion, so I went. So that's kind of what the direction that I went in.
Perfect. Okay, so Joe, who are you, and how do we know each other?
Who am I is it's a very big question. So, well, you just read my bio. But no, yeah, I'm a Latinx cartoonist who has been living in Glendale, California for quite some time. I grew up in Mexicali. I love visual storytelling and have fallen in love with making comics and have been very fortunate that this is what I do for a living now. So, living the dream basically, and reminded of that every day. We know each other because the short version of the story is that our mutual friend Kel McDonald recommended me to our soon at the moment to be editor Chantal LaRoche in order for me to collaborate with you on this beautiful book that I have right here called Soupy Leaves Home, which. So we knew each other by that, and I got a cold email. I got an email from Chantal about the project, and just the tagline alone made me fall in love with it. And then I got your script, made me love it even more. And then I got to meet you in person, and it's just been like, wow, it's like, what a way for the person to live up to the story.
You're so nice. I feel the same way. And so for those of you who don't know, Soupy Leaves Home is a book that Joe and I did on Dark Horse Comics. And it's about a girl named Pearl who ends up riding the rails as hobo in 1932 in Depression era America. And she sort of disguises herself as a boy for safety reasons and figures out sort of how to be a modern girl, modern woman, basically trying to forge that path when she can't really see a way for that, models for that at that time. I loved working with you so much, Joe. I really think that we had a really good collaborative working thing. I did pretty much open script with you. Do you want to talk about just for like a little minute, like about,
Yeah.
about that? And
Yeah, of course. So yeah, so when I got the script, it was exactly like my definitely preference of script, which is it's page breakdown, dialogue oriented with scene descriptions. And yeah, so as someone who has collaborated with multiple writers, scripts always look different. And even the and yeah, and I definitely have a preference. And the way that you scripted Soupy was definitely my favorite, just because it seemed to signal to me that you were trusting me with your writing in order for me to contribute to the visual storytelling of it. Um, and yeah, I mean, like the script was very much just page breakdown and what was going on the page, what your ideas were for the page, which I always took as like very suggestive in terms of like, well, this is what I'm envisioning, but also leaving it open of like if I had anything to do, if I had anything to contribute. And like what a serendipitous project, because I think that immediately you and I were just like on the same page of what um like what the dreams or what the daydreams or what the visuals could look like from the day to day to when something is aspirational, or when something is being discussed in like a hopeful way.
yeah, a little bit of the magical realism stuff,
Right.
I think we were really on the same page with the colors too. Yeah, I love the open script. I mean, I've done both, and I love open script. And I think what I love about it is because comics is such a collaborative form, and it really felt like we were making the book together.
Right.
Especially because you came on sort of after the fact. There was
Yeah.
a different artist at first, and so
Yeah.
it was like a little. And but I think it really made it so that like we together were sort of working on that book. So I'm going to move on to the next question. You
Sure.
can always come back to Soupy,
Yeah, of
because I
course.
talk Soupy all the time. But I want everyone to know more about you. So I kind of came to you when Kel and Chantal were proposing you as a person. I went out and read the book that you had worked on, which I think was, maybe you'd done one other one before that, but The Leg was the one that I knew,
Yeah.
with Van Jensen.
Yeah.
And that had sort of was kind of a similar time period,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And I just thought it was so well done, and you have such a beautiful lyrical, I think, artistic style, like, in your two subsequent books as well. What just came out? What just came out?
uh you mean in 2021?
Yeah.
Yeah, so in 2021, I know that we said we were going to move past it, but like, yeah, the second edition for Soupy Leaves Home came out, which was great. But also this book that I collaborated with Kel McDonald, speaking of which, called Stars Hide Your Fire Through Iron Circus, also came out. And it's a beautiful book. It's also a story of these two friends who find themselves in the middle of this supernatural event that is happening in their hometown. Which has a lot of the elements that I love to work on, which is this personal struggle between these two friends, but also there's something bigger going on around them. And I know that sounds very generic and kind of like broad strokes, but I've seen that kind of stories done in ways that doesn't really grab me. But when at the forefront there is the personal connections or the personal dynamics between characters, that's usually what tries to drive me in. And also, just to plug it in 2021, I finished a graphic novel that comes out this year in July called Twin Cities, which is a book that I wrote and drew. And I mean, with all due respect to everyone around, like I think it's, you know, it's the one that I'm proudest at the moment, just because it's like it's the most recent one, and it's also because it starts getting very personal on like on the subject matter. So yeah, 2021 was very busy.
Yeah, so in Twin Cities, I know you've been talking about it for a while. It's two sisters, one who decides to stay in school in Mexico, and one who crosses the border every day, right? And goes to school in the United States.
Right. So the only adjustment to that is that eventually I said,
adjustment.
it's they are twins, but one is a boy and the other one's a girl.
Mhm.
But yes, you are correct. And like what happens is they graduate from sixth grade, which is elementary school. That's the highest level of elementary school in Mexico. It's the sixth grade. And for middle school or seventh grade, Teresa, the girl, decides to study in the US, and Fernando, the boy, decides to stay in Mexico for different reasons altogether. And the point of the book is exploring siblinghood, but also just like living under the same roof and just starting to diverge in these two cultures that are starting to have an impact and that are still very intertwined, which basically sums up what living in the border can be like.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And I know that like you've talked about Mexicali a lot, because that's where you grew up and stuff. And I was only sad that I didn't, when I went to Mexicali to do that college thing, I was only sad that your mom wasn't there, so I could have dipped across the border and had tea with her.
right.
Okay, so that's what is that what you're working on now? Or are you working on anything? You don't have to tell me what it is.
No, just I mean, right now I'm working on a couple of other things. I don't think that they've been officially announced, so I'm gonna keep that.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, no, like I'm currently working on other projects. I'm collaborating with other writers, and I'm very excited about that. But yeah, I'm staying busy. But yeah, no, like it's Twin Cities was the latest thing that I did, and now I'm just sitting down and working on other comics. So
Yeah, I think maybe it was probably your social media, but I feel like I saw it somewhere like in a like upcoming and like some advertisement somewhere. So bravo on that. I can't wait to read it. Um, okay, here's my question. How do
yeah.
you figure out what you're gonna work on?
It's gonna sound like a college level thing, but like, look, time management is a skill, and it's probably your best friend. How do I figure out what I'm gonna work on? Like, you mean in terms of like a graphic novel,
I
or
mean, like, and you can interpret it however
yeah,
you want. If you interpret it as like, how do you figure out what your next project is going to be?
gotcha.
How
Okay,
do you figure
so
it? No, but I think it's really valuable and valid
yeah,
as artists to talk about time management too. So
yeah,
how do you figure
so
out what to work on as well? I
I
struggle
mean,
with that.
this is not something that I learned from one day to another. This has been the development in my profession and as a professional and as a career. Um, I figure out like one of the most like the first question that I ask myself before I jump into a project, especially with comics, is do I want to be doing this for the next 2 years?
Right.
Like flat out, because I mean, usually that's around the amount of time that it takes to get a book done, more or less. And I know that there's a lot of conversations between like, what the appropriate time to work on a graphic novel. Anyway, so I kind of figured like that's my first question of like, if like many writers and cartoonists, like I have ideas all the time and I got these cool things, but before I jump into it, it's like, do I want to spend 2 years working on that? And that's the first sign of like, no, I don't want to spend 2 years working on this thing that sounds super cool for about a month or for about 6 months. So that's my first one. And the other one is also that, I mean, I do think that it's important to assess yourself as a creator and figure out like, what is your average? How much can you get done in a reasonable amount of time without sacrificing your health? So that's also kind of why I say like, yeah, time management is a skill. So like to me, it's very important to be like, okay, well, can I do 200 pages in 10 to 11 months, give or take, that I'm going to take some like maybe a day trip to somewhere, or like how long does it take me to finish each page? Because like some days I can draw 5 pages, but other days it gets me, it takes me all day to get through one.
Right.
And that's the thing of like, that's the tricky thing with being creative, is that eventually you figure out that there's no mechanics to it. It's really just like every day is different, every process is different. So
And it's
uh,
different between writers and artists too, you know, like I think a lot of people, I mean, not us, but and not people in comics who are watching this, but I think a lot of people who don't know how comics are made don't like, I can work on 4 graphic novels at the same time, but an artist, it's very labor intensive, can only
right.
work on like one. I want to ask you about your balance, because it's something that I've been thinking about a lot, sort of your balance between, you mostly do creator owned things and not licensed, but maybe you've got something coming up. I don't know.
No. Oh, I totally misunderstood the direction of that question.
No,
It's
but I mean, because for me, one thing that I think about is, and maybe for you, it's the storyboards or whatever, is like sort of what's the day job and
right.
what's the heart job, you know,
Yeah,
and stuff. It's like I don't like to take a licensed project on unless it's something that I want to be working on. Do you know what I mean?
right.
Like I've said no to like some things because I've been like, I don't want to hang out in that space. I mean, I'll read someone else's take on that space or, you know,
Right.
whatever, but like, it's not, I'm not going to I won't be bringing my whole heart to it. And I'd rather bring my heart to something.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, it's give me one quick second. I might have to mute myself because I need to answer. There's someone else next to me that needs to
Sure.
answer something.
I'm not a good editor, but I can definitely click.
No, it's so okay. So firstly, I thought that you were gonna go in the direction of collaborating versus working on my on working
Oh,
with things
yeah,
that I write
go ahead.
myself. But
No,
but I
that's a
like your
great,
question a lot. No, like I like your question a whole lot better because yeah, I mean, like, it is I definitely prefer to stay on the side of creator owned stuff, just because to me that's, it's gonna sound so corny, but like, to me that just indicates something more unique and more one of a kind of thing. And you know, like, yeah, the day job for the longest time, less and less nowadays, but the day job for the longest time was storyboarding commercials for properties. I mean, you read my, you know, my biography. So, you know, working with, you know, things like Lego properties or Hot Wheel properties and things like that, it's fun. But going back to that original point of like, yeah, it's fun for about a week or 2 weeks at that, or sometimes, you know, give or take. But when it's working on creator owned stuff, it just feels very special. So that's usually what I find myself of like, I'm enamored doing that for a year and a half or two of just like, this is, you know, this is something so specific. And
Would you ever do like a superhero? I mean, like, would you?
I don't, I mean, no one has ever asked me.
Right.
It's but I honestly, I mean, I'm
I would love to do a short, like,
I
you
think that
know,
like,
10-page like story for an anthology with you as with a
so
superhero. It would be like a fun little palate cleanser. I think that would be.
yeah, I mean, like, I guess I would have to look at it because like, it's I guess this is one of the things of, again, and I hope I'm not upsetting anybody, but like,
I
these are
don't
just my
think so.
personal tastes of like, super, like, I've tried to be interested in superheroes many times. And it usually worked for like for a short span, for like a short amount of time. But if I have to be completely honest, I am very fascinated for the historical significance that superheroes has had in our culture and why that's important. But I don't think that they have ever spoken to me personally so much in order for me to like dive deep into them. Some of the reasons are very silly, but I think that bottom line is that I also tend to be more interested in stories that take place on Earth between, you know, very human characters. And I know that there's got to be like, you know, within the superhero world, there's a lot of those per se. So I don't know, someone could come up to me and say like, hey, would you like to draw this X-Men character who happens to be the child of 2 mutants but, you know, doesn't have any superpowers? It's like,
See, that's
okay,
what I'm
you know,
saying, Joe.
so that would be like, okay, like, I guess I can take a stab at
Yeah,
that.
you like people. You like,
Right,
yeah,
yeah.
like the
So
connections between mean, like that's where your sweetness is, like in all of your own work. All right, I'm gonna move on to the next question.
Yeah.
What is do you have a theory, an art theory, or do you have like a mantra, or do you have like some sort of like golden piece of advice that you always give people,
Oh
or
yeah.
that you would give yourself as a young artist? Like what would that be?
Yeah, like I mean, like, it's gonna sound silly, but like I mean, I journal a lot, and I write down stuff. So like, there's like little golden nuggets that always, depending on the situation. But one of the things that I constantly tell myself is, and this is for my own peace of mind, is whatever it is that I can get accomplished in the amount. The day is only so long. So at the end of the day, I have to be at peace with whatever I was able to accomplish that day.
Oh my God, that's such great advice.
So
I
it's
need
just
to hear that.
yeah, well, I recommend it because I mean, look, like a lot of creatives, like yeah, I also want to do everything and I want to eat the whole world, and I have all these ideas that I want to express, whether they're good ones or not good ones, it's fine. But at the end of the day, you know, our days only have 24 hours and rest is important. So to me, it's just very much of like, by the time that you're done, you just, for me, like I have to be like, today I tried my best. This is the best that I can do today. Tomorrow's another day. I just leave it for now. That's the best that I could do today. Just be at peace with that, you know, however that may be, whether it's, you know, take a walk, take a shower or something, but like that's one of them. So
I think that's really great because I sometimes do beat myself up a little bit, like today I was like, I was like, what did I do today? Shit, I didn't do anything. Like, wait, no, you finished the thing for this one project. Like that is put to bed now. Sure,
right.
you didn't work on any of the other projects, but you put one thing to bed. So
yeah,
you accomplished something. And it's hard to not beat yourself up when your to-do list is like,
Oh yeah, and here's like an anecdote that I've told other people, but like that I think it was very valuable to me. Of like I was having a very stressful day while writing, and I figured like I need to take a walk, and I was on a walk. And long story short, I started getting very frustrated of like, well, whoop-de-doo, look at me, who has the, you know, who has the privilege to like go on a walk on a weekday. And then I paused myself like, no, I'm working right now. Like I'm writing, like I'm walking around, like I'm figuring things out. Like this is working. It just I just happened to not be at the office or my studio, this place, while doing that. But that still counts as writing. That still counts as creative problem solving. And it just looks different than, oh yeah, you know, being on the desk. And sure, there is a time to be on the desk. There is a time to be on the script. There is a time.
Eventually you have to be at the
yeah,
desk.
eventually you have to
That's
be there.
The thing that I always remind myself. Right. It's like, eventually you got to put your butt in the chair. But yeah, I think that's like, I think that's a really great point about, that, like, for example, like, I feel like even this is work because one thing that I've been really missing, and this sort of segues into my next question, one thing that I've really been missing during this pandemic is the connections of like going out and having a coffee with a fellow creative and just sort of like commiserating about something, or not feeling alone in my frustration about not getting my work done or whatever. And so I was like, what can I do to nourish my own heart and self while we're still going through all this fucking bullshit, so here's my question for you. And that's something that I learned during the pandemic, is that I am not very good at asking for help, not very good at asking for sort of, I don't want to be a bother to anyone, for creative, they're too busy. They don't want to talk to me about this or that. And that's something that I'm learning, that I've learned during the pandemic, that I need to ask for that. Is there anything that you learned during the pandemic? Like anything that did you, and it could be anything like baking or, like whatever.
Yeah, I mean, like I mean, like, again, like I was one of the lucky people who when this whole thing started, predominantly in 2020, I was one of the lucky people who just time-wise, it was like, oh, it's about time for me to sit down and work on this book. And one of the things that I learned while doing that is, one, A, always count your blessings, but two, and even though it sounds like an obvious one, but like, let your body rest when it has to rest. Because eventually one of the things that was happening to me is that I started getting aches in my body. And eventually I just figured like, oh, which by the way, for anyone curious out there, I love walking and I love exercising, like cardio, like running or walking and bike riding. And then eventually kind of clicked of like, oh yeah, like I've been waking up, sitting and drawing for like 2.5 months straight without even going so much for like a walk. Like, yeah, that's gonna have a negative effect. So like, so even though something as obvious as remember to take your breaks and remember to stretch, which are, foundational, yeah, just take the time to go outside and just, go for a bike ride, go for a walk, go for a walk around the corner, go for a walk around the block or something. But just, change things, like, and like change your tempos, like very much like, very much like a song, right? Of just like, like everything gets more interesting the more you change the beat from time to time. That was one of the things that I learned during the pandemic, and
I
also
love
just
that.
to,
Change your tempos. It's so
right. For
vital.
those,
Yeah, really
for those of
good.
us who love music.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the one that I would go for.
Okay. All right. So now here's my next question. Um, what is the one piece of work that you've done that you wish had more love on it? You know what I mean? That you're like, is, oh, this is my, this is the thing, and like, and I feel like no one knows about it. I've got like 50 million of them. Soupy being one, but I'm glad that
Right.
Soupy is out again.
Um, Friend, I don't know. Actually, that's a really good question.
I mean, and that answer could change. Like you could say today it's this, and tomorrow it's, something else.
I mean, I'm just glad for anyone that ever gets to read my books, or anyone who gets to read any of the stuff that I do. Is like, I hope that my genuine feelings are that of gratitude. But if I dig in a little deeper, then yeah, like if I could only pick one, maybe it's just because
Same.
it's the most, yeah, like I think it's just because it's like, yeah, I wish Stars Hide Your Fire would have gotten a lot more, discussion, especially since it came out during like, during the fall season, and it is very Halloweeny type of story because it involves the spirit and it involves like spells and things like that. So yeah, I wish that there would have been more attention to that for sure. But like we got some pretty good reviews, and both Cal and I are very proud of the book, so I'm happy with the readers that come across it. So
Yeah. I think that's like one of the things that I always have to remind myself of, because like, I really wish that people read Soupy. I love Soupy so much. And I feel like, and the other book that I have is this book, First Day on Earth, that I'm always like, I'm so sad that it's out of print, and I wish people could read it, and you should read it online, like you can get it digitally, but that one. But I do think that like that's part of the process of being an artist, that there are like are art babies that that we kind of wish like had a little bit more sort of attention on them, especially because it's so hard for any project to get any sort of like love. But I remind myself that you know people can always pick up these books, like they're always there.
oh yeah, absolutely. So that's why they're still in print, right? That's where you can find them.
Right. Or if they're not in print, they might be at a used bookstore or in a library, or
Right. Or the library,
yeah,
like the library is our friend. So
exactly. So okay, so moving on. Are you currently obsessing over anything? And what is it? And it can be anything. It doesn't have to be art
oh
wise.
yeah, oh yeah. Just how many things can I list?
You can list as many as you want, Joe.
Okay, cool. So like so lately I've been listening to a lot of music, and I've been revisiting a lot of music. So currently I've been really obsessed with Courtney Barnett, and her most recent album is amazing, and I keep listening to it. I've also been re-listening to this album called Worry by Jeff Rosenstock. I'm also rewatching Atlanta right now, and man, I am so excited for the new season to come out. And that show is just, every time that I watch it, it's just like impactful. Here's something that I'll geek out about. So for the past few days, almost a week now, so I have a favorite album of all times, called Hombre Sintetizador by a band called Surdog. They're a Mexican band. They don't exist anymore. But they put together an album in 1999, and that's my favorite album of all time. So I've been revisiting interviews with all the band members in where they are now, and just hearing their stories of like what the band went through, what they are going through now, and all that. But also them talking about like, again, this is like a whole thing, but like the thing that I'm obsessing about is just like they all seem to be on the consensus separately, because they don't do interviews together for the most part, but like they all seem to be on the consensus that recording this album was such a wonderful time for all six of them to be, in this house in the middle of nowhere, just being creative and putting it together. And I'm trying to, I mean, this is where I've been for like the past 2 weeks. It's just like, I love that of like, even though for whatever happens with people eventually down the line, just the fact that you have this artifact and this experience. And then again, that it's, when the album came out, it was a flop, like whatever, but it has become like a bit of a cult classic for some people. And the moment that I heard the album was like, this is 20 years ago. It just blew my mind. And 22 or 23 years later, I'm still obsessing with that album. I still love it, and I still revisit it frequently. So I'll give it to that.
I think it's really interesting, because I think that like that just touches on that idea of like these sort of like core things in our artist DNA that kind of form us in some way.
Yeah.
I certainly have my things like that too. Uh, like I realized just talking about music, like I was talking with someone, and they were talking about like music in 1996, and I was like, okay, music in 1996. First of all, my album in 1996, but also like I realized that I had never heard the Britney Spears song "Toxic" until 2 months ago, and like because my core DNA at that time was so indie and so not mainstream that like I did a tweet and I was like, oh, what is everybody's favorite songs from 1996? And then all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, like, was I even participating in culture at that time? Because I like Spice Girls, I never, whatever. So, but it's interesting how there are these things that are part of our core DNA. And I'm curious whether or not these 20 years later, if you learned anything about you as an artist or about a life as an artist through these interviews that you read with the musicians.
Yeah, no, definitely yes. So the first thing that I will say is just like I completely agree with you, and also, I mean, you're familiar with my work, so like music is like, ugh, like other than a cartoonist, I guess I can refer to myself as a frustrated musician because I'm not one. But I love making noise. But no, yeah, like I do think that like listening to this album for 20 years and then discovering these interviews, and again, these are recent interviews, like somewhere between like the last 2 to 3 years even. One of the things that I learned from them, yeah, is just like how the fact that they got together, or like the fact that a group of different individuals got together, because also that's another thing of, yeah, they're all adults now, but then when they were together, the age difference was so vast. Like one of them was 14, the other ones were like 19, and that's a world of difference. To be making music with someone with that much of a gap can make very interesting things. And I think that that's one thing that I take into perspective of like, like if they were collaborating with people with different artists from different backgrounds in order to create something so unique and specific, and then eventually parted ways in both good and not so good, ways. What does that tell me for whatever it is that I'm going through? Of like, well, that means that if I'm collaborating with people that are, that have different backgrounds from me, it is very possible to be doing something very beautiful and something valuable that maybe it will resonate. Hopefully it'll end things, but hopefully it'll end in a good note for sure. But
that happens, I mean, but that's also like collaboration is such an intimate thing, you know,
Right.
and it's very precious and very precarious, you know, and I do think that it is interesting to have people look back at something and be like, this was a great moment, even though I might
Right.
speak to these people anymore, you know, like I think that's pretty cool. um
Yeah.
yeah, okay, so I'm at my last question,
Okay.
which is I guess you kind of said what you're working on now. You just finished the twin
Twin
book,
Cities. Yeah.
Twin Cities. um and so that's what's coming up next. So I guess what I'll ask is, you know, where can people find you on the internets?
So I'm uh well, I stream every Wednesday with Cal McDonald at or from 8 to 10 p.m. on Cal McDonald's Discord. Just Cal McDonald on well, not on Discord, I'm sorry, on Twitch. Sorry. Other than that, I have an Instagram account. I post very rarely just because I feel that if I'm going to post something, I want it to be something that I'm working on or something that I've just read. But because I'm currently working on something that I can't share too much right now, I just haven't been very active. But whenever I finish a sketch or I have something to talk about, I'm on Instagram. I post on Instagram. And for a while, I was on Twitter very regularly in the most benign, positive way, which was, you know, on Twitter, I would always be sharing like a link to a YouTube song that I really like, or sharing an article that I found interesting, or just just sharing things that I'm interested in. I don't engage with too many people on social media for multiple reasons. One of them is just being like, well, I mean, I'll have a conversation. I love having conversations with people, but that's more valuable to me on a face-to-face or like in this way. Text wise, I just feel that like so much can get lost and it's very easy to misinterpret something. So I just try to, stay off. But anyways, for the past month or so, I've been less active on Twitter, but I do have a Twitter account,
Yep, it's Joe Pye.
and I have a website. Yeah, at Joe Pye.
Yeah.
And my Instagram is at the Joe Pye. And yeah, and I have a website which has my email. So if anybody has a question, or a comment, I'll take them. So, but yeah, so it's yeah, I'm on the internet. I exist on the internet.
Well,
So
yeah, I just want to make sure people have like a place where they can find you. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you know, because you're fabulous. And
you're
I'm so happy to get to talk to you because it's been too long, my friend.
It has, and like it's and all those get-togethers that you've always organized, and like they've always been so fun,
Oh,
and so like yeah, I miss seeing you in person
yeah,
too.
me
So
too.
like it's a
I know we didn't even get to do anything like some kind of event for Soupy and for like the new thing, like whatever, it's all good.
I
Um,
mean,
um,
did you? This is just getting off track a little bit, but like,
oh, but
are you doing any conventions at all this year, or like, where
oh,
are you with that?
well, I mean, I did do Thought Bubble. I went to England and I did Thought Bubble. That was before Omicron, but during Delta, so it was weird, but it was good and it was nice and strange. And my opera was playing there. And then yeah, I don't know. I definitely don't feel like I want to do anything in January or February, but maybe in March. But anyways, let's
Yeah.
let's wrap it up because we can
Okay. Yeah. Let's. Yeah.
not here. But yeah, I mean, the point is that I would like to start doing conventions again. I think this project is part of me trying to sort of get back a little bit, some of those things that I missed that really nourished me when I was in England, at Thought Bubble and stuff, like just seeing my fellow creator friends. And so I thank you, Joe, so
No. No.
much
No. Thank you.
for talking with me and being my second guest on Tea with Cecil. Cheers to you.
Cheers.